Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to week 2 of our exploration of online collections for information studies 752. So online collections part 2, or numero dos, as my daughter might say. So our weekly topics, same as last week, so I won't belabor the points. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to take a look at the online collections interface for the American Heritage Center and discuss how well, or maybe not so well, it features some of the different aspects of online collections that a couple of our articles for this course have mentioned as being beneficial for researchers. So we'll look at some from the Warwick article from this week and last week, and we'll look at the Chasanoff article from our information seeking behavior lecture, and again, just kind of talk about how well the AHC manifests these different features. Obviously, the features that a researcher is interested in using is really going to vary based on need, based on their level of experience, based on their occupation, and some of the other things that we've talked about. So, some of these may be more or less useful to researchers, but there are some that I feel are kind of on a basic level useful for most researchers, and then there are some that are maybe more useful for more advanced researchers, and I'll kind of comment on that as we move through our analysis of the AHC's digital collections. So I'll go ahead and pause this and move into the AHC's digital collections. Okay, so we're actually going to start here at the AHC's website. I think it's important to consider how well or how easily a researcher can find an institution's online collections from their website, since, as we talked about before, it is an aspect of archives that requires a lot of resources for digitization and server space, having to pay for some kind of hosting service. So obviously, if you're going to invest those kinds of resources in something, you want it to be easy to find. It is pretty easy to find the AHC's digital collections or online collections. It's under this subheading of the catalogs. Honestly, I think that's kind of a weird name, because when I think of a catalog, I think of a catalog where you would search for all collections, whether or not they are online or not. And then they have UW catalog under the catalog, so that's maybe a little confusing. But sure enough, here we have digital collections on Luna. Maybe this on Luna part is a little confusing too. If someone doesn't know what Luna is, that might be a little confusing to them. Maybe it should just say online collections or digital collections. But I don't know, that's a slight quibble, I would say. So another interesting thing to look at is how well you can get to the AHC's online collections from other parts of the website. So let's just go into the About Us. Not really seeing a lot here. If you do click on collections, then it will take you to, again, the digital collections, and it's also on this kind of sidebar here. So I guess that's fine. I don't know, I feel like if I had online collections, I would really make it clear where they were and how to get to them. But this is a fine job. So we'll go ahead and click into Luna here and start a more in-depth exploration of the AHC's digital collections. Okay, so one of the features that Chasanoff mentioned is broad visual browsing of collections, and that's present to a certain extent. So if you click on Browse All here, it'll bring up all of the records in the AHC's digital collection. So it looks like there are a little over, or almost 149,000 digital collections. So if you wanted, you really could just kind of go through them in order, which would be really daunting, but it more or less does give you a broad visual browsing of collections, and it does provide you with the serendipitous discovery that the Warwick article talks about as well. So if you're just kind of scrolling through this stuff, you know, who knows what might capture your attention, and who knows what you might, you know, decide that you want to research more. So there is some of that. You can also, if you wanted to do a broader visual or a broader visual browsing of collections, you could click on some of the subject terms over here as well. So again, it gives you a lot of free reign as far as how you navigate through the online collections and what you look at, which is good because, you know, every researcher is going to have kind of their own method to find what they're looking for, and you know, you don't want an A to B to C type of structure that researchers have to go through. So there are definitely a lot of options for researchers to look at. So in order to take and then you can also do just by all the collections here as well. So that's good too. In order to take a more focused look at this online collections interface, I'm going to look at the Forrest J. Ackerman collection. So Ackerman was a sci-fi collector, and he has a pretty large collection of his stuff at the HC. I think there's another collection of his records at another archive as well. So again, you can click on Browse All and sort of begin your exploration of Ackerman's collections. And then they have it broken down by different subjects and different periods as well. There's also an advanced search button. So again, even within this collection, pretty broad visual appreciation of materials, broad visual browsing of a collection. So, so that is pretty good stuff. One thing that the Warwick article mentioned is the ability to measure the physical extent of a collection. In order to do that, you actually have to click on one of the individual records. So it's not apparent at sort of the home page of the collection, how large the collection is. So you have to click onto a collection to find that out. And even then it's a little unclear. So this has source box 105 or box 105 folder 10. So I guess, you know, at least there's 105 boxes in this collection, but to really find out the whole scope of the collection, you need to click on this link here, which takes you to the AHC's online finding aid. So there you can see that it's 94 cubic feet and 184 boxes. So that's not something that's readily apparent for this collection and through this interface. So that might be a little confusing for researchers. They may not know, you know, exactly what percentage of the collection they're looking at. And, you know, they may think that this is all the collection and everything has been scanned and placed online, when in fact, a pretty small percentage of this collection actually has been. So that can create a source of confusion. Another thing that the Warwick article mentions is some indication of new material that's been added to the digital collections. There is a date that the record was digitized that was placed on here, and I guess you could do a search for a different date or for this date for other collections, but there really isn't something that says when exactly all the records were scanned that you can kind of look at without having to go record through record, which would certainly be a not very convenient thing to do. Some other things that our articles mention are trustworthy and provenance. You know, this online collection has a pretty professional appearance to it. You know, it looks very professional and well done. So that can definitely help with the trustworthiness. You know, I wouldn't look at this and think, wow, you know, it doesn't really seem like this is a legitimate archive, or, you know, these people don't know what they're doing. The provenance is fairly solid as well. So you can see that, you know, this record came from the Forrest Ackerman collection. It's photographs of Forrest J. Ackerman, so that there are some provenance tool or indications as well. Also, if you look at the source, it says the Forrest J. Ackerman collection, and then the online website will have more information as well. So that's handled fairly well. And a lot of what we're looking here is contextual elements. So you could do a search for other photographs in this collection, other things linked to science fiction in this collection, other things in this collection from this date range. If you wanted to find other images in the TIFF format and so on, other images in language. And then we do have, of course, additional contextual information in the relation field, which takes you to the online finding aid. Unfortunately, these things don't link to other collections within the HC, so this will just search within the Forrest J. Ackerman papers. So if I wanted to look for other science fiction materials, then you could, this would just find them within the Ackerman collection and not within the HC at large. So the contextual elements are a little bit limited in that way. The HC also has a couple of other tools that are contextually related as well. So if you go down to, if you click on Explore and go down to External Media Search, you actually have to create a profile and then log in. So here we go. And then this actually takes you out. So we have to go back into the Ackerman collection, which is kind of annoying. Okay, so then we'll go into external media search, and then so if we click something like film posters, it'll search Flickr for images that have that language or that tag in it. So you just wait a little while, it comes up. Unfortunately, a lot of the results here aren't really film posters, they're actually graffiti. So this isn't a contextual tool that is particularly useful. Also, it just searches Flickr, it's not searching other archives. So that's not ideal as well. Maybe if the HC had a partnership with another institution that also had film posters or science fiction stuff or whatever, then this type of thing could link to that archive's online collections, and there could be some of the virtual reunification that we have talked about in this semester. Like I mentioned, I think there are papers from Ackerman at another archive. I want to say Syracuse University. So if there was something that linked to those papers as well, that would be a great contextual tool to have, and certainly something much more useful than what we see here. So let's go ahead and go back. So that's kind of a mixed result there. One thing that the Chasanoff article mentions is easy connection to the physical copy. Again, this one is also kind of mixed. If you wanted to request this box for the reading room, then you would have to go into the online find aid and then go up and click on the email for the HC's reference department. There's not something on here where you can just say, I want to see this box, and it will bring up either an email form or some kind of prompt for you to request seeing this box in the reading room, which would be a lot more convenient. So there really isn't too easy access. You know, it's more convoluted and not as efficient as it could be. So that one is also kind of a mixed grade. There is a way that you can request to see these materials in person, but it's maybe not as cohesive as it could be. The same is true for obtaining a digital surrogate. There's not really an efficient way to say, you know, I would like a really high quality scan of this image, or a really high quality file of this image. You know, you could go through the reference department and they would probably refer you to another department, but there isn't something on each record that says, you know, order a copy or something like that, which would be, again, a pretty efficient way to handle those requests. I'm not sure that that's something that there's a lot of demand for or that happens very often, but if it is a tool that researchers are looking for, it's not something that is really present in this online collection interface. There's also the element of original descriptive material that Chasanoff talks about. So again, that would be present in the link to the online finding aid. I'm not really sure that I like this, this field where the online finding aid being called relation. People might not know that this is going to take them to the online finding aid. So that's maybe a little weird too. And it might not be clear to researchers that they can look at the original descriptive material for this collection through this link. So that might be something that could be a little clearer too, especially for less experienced researchers. Like if you just looked at this link, you know, it says rmoa.unm.edu, and it's like, well, this is the University of Wyoming's American Heritage Center. So why is there a University of New Mexico website? And that might be confusing for people. So that would be something that, again, might trigger some confusion and could be made clearer, it seems like, pretty easily. So there are some pretty neat tools that this online interface offers. So first of all, as you just saw, you can kind of zoom in and look at the record in different different levels, and the scans actually look really good. So Warwick mentions visual appreciation of materials, and I feel like, you know, you can look at these and you know, the scans do look pretty good. This is especially true if you look at the film posters, which are probably the most interesting part of this collection. So let's see, let's click on the brain machine. And, you know, even if you zoom in, like the scans look, they're really, really high quality. And, you know, you look at these and be like, wow, this is a really great scan. This is a pretty high quality image. And there's definitely some visual appeal to these images, which is good. And also having the ability to kind of move around, and you can rotate the image if you want, although it looks like it's going to take a while. Or you can kind of, yeah, you can kind of rotate it. And so there are some opportunities to kind of adjust the image to fit your needs, which is helpful. It's kind of related to the multi-sensory input that Warwick discusses, kind of in a way. Obviously, you can't like smell or touch these posters, but there is some interaction with them that you can have from just moving them around and things like that, zooming in and out. So that's pretty good too. Some of the more interesting tools that this website offers is you can annotate these records. So there are these little buttons here where you kind of click on, and then you can add an annotation. So I would love to see this movie. or whatever research notes that you would like. And what's neat about having a profile is that this annotation will stick with the record. So if I, assuming that I saved it, if I logged out and I came back in, this annotation would still be attached to the record. So this is just a neat way to make little research notes about what you found, what you got from each record, how it relates to your information need. And that's something that the Warwick article mentions as being helpful and a trait that researchers may well desire. Another thing that Warwick mentions is the ability to compare different texts at once. And this is something that you can do through the AHC's online collections by creating a media group. So I've already created a media group for this course. So if we go in here, I've only got one record in there now, but if I were to come out and add this media to my group, I'm not really sure if it added it or not, so let's go ahead and take a look. And then there it is. So you can kind of compare different texts. So if there were different letters from Ackerman or different photographs of him, you could certainly do that. And then there are some ways that you can manage and reorder and put things in a slideshow and so on. So yeah, you can annotate, you can do that. Those are some tools that are going to be appealing to more advanced researchers, especially that are interested in doing that kind of thing. And having notes on each record, and it's neat that you can have all these notes that are attached to your profile and sort of live within the HC's digital collections interface. I will say, however, that these tools aren't really that obvious, so there isn't a whole lot pointing to them, like unless they kind of, these buttons disappear, and if you don't hover up to them, then you might not know really what these buttons mean. And there really isn't anything on this online collections that says, hey, you can annotate things, or hey, you can create your own media group and save different records that you want to look at later. So that's kind of a shame to have these really great tools, but not really have a whole lot that points to them and says, check these out if you want to do X, Y, and Z. It kind of seems like a waste, honestly, because I think that they are pretty useful tools that a lot of people would enjoy working with, but again, they're kind of hidden, and that sort of undermines their utility. One other thing that the Chestnut article mentions is the ability to download images at different resolutions, and you can do that as well. If you click on export, which again, is kind of weird, maybe it might say something like download, or something that is maybe a little more easily understandable. So here you can download at different resolutions, so ranging from medium to a small thumbnail, and that way you could put them on your own computer or on a hard drive or in the cloud or whatever, and work with the records in that way if you wanted to. So again, that is a pretty useful tool, I think. I'm assuming that you can't download these at sort of the highest resolution, that you would need to order a scan to do that, but you can get them at a variety of resolutions. And again, that's something that seems like it'd be pretty useful for researchers to be able to do. Another thing, or the final thing that we'll talk about that the Warwick article mentions, is navigation. It's pretty easy to navigate through collections. So again, You can either browse through all of the records in a collection. There are the different categories that you can look at, which is helpful too. So navigation is pretty good. It might be a little bit better from the individual record perspective. Again, you can do these searches. But if I wanted to get here, straight to the posters, that seems like it's a little more convoluted. So I would say the navigation is okay. The navigation aids also are okay. It kind of tells you that you're within photographs, so you have a little bit of an understanding of where you are. So that's not bad. So yeah, overall the navigation is fairly good, I would say. Overall, if I was to give this online collections interface a grade, I would probably give it a B or a B plus. There are some really good records here. They look nice. You can interact with them in a variety of ways. There are the cool annotation and media group tools. You can download things, which is good. I would say what's not so great is the fact that a lot of those tools are fairly hidden, as I mentioned. So unless you kind of accidentally hover over them or kind of discover them serendipitously, which I did honestly when I was looking at this for the first time a couple of semesters ago, then you might not know that they're there. And again, that's kind of a waste to have these great tools that people might not necessarily know exist and know that they can use. I feel like the contextual tools could be better if there was a way to more easily link to maybe all the science fiction materials in the HC's online collections instead of just within the Ackerman stuff. You can do this advanced search. So that's one way that you could do that, but it might be easier to be able to do it from an individual record. So that would be a way that the contextual elements might be a little bit better. And having a more obvious indicator, this is going to take you to an online find aid, I think would be super helpful because again, it's not really obvious what you're clicking on here and where it's going to take you. So yeah, overall pretty strong, but in some ways also a little bit of a mixed bag as far as some of the tools that Warwick and Chasnov mentioned. And I would say especially the contextual tools are ones that a lot of people are going to be interested in and are going to appeal to a lot of researchers of different levels of experience. So it seems like those would be especially well developed. And there's not a lot here that easily points outside of this collection and outside of the AHC except for that Flickr thing, which seems not entirely useful. So that's kind of an underdeveloped part of this online collection interface. But there are definitely some really positive things to it, which is why I'm going to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a B or a B plus for me. So one of your options for your repository outreach review is to evaluate your institution's online collections. So that's why I wanted to do this, just to reinforce some of the things we've talked about in class, but also kind of give you an example of what your review of your institution's online collections might look like. So hopefully it's been a helpful exercise for you from a variety of standpoints. But we will go ahead and call it a day there. So thank you for listening. As always, let me know if you have any questions and take care.